So there's a topic I've been wanting to talk about for a little while. Obviously, Dajaune Brown, very interesting, highly rated prospect at Derby County. But what are Derby going to do with him in this summer window? Now, obviously, I think a lot depends on our league status, and that hasn't been confirmed yet. So in this video, I'm going to be talking about how I would cope with this Dajaune Brown situation, what I'd do if we was in the Championship, how I'd cope with it in League One, and see, what do you guys think? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments of what you do. Obviously, he's out on loan at the minute, so let me know your thoughts on his loan spell, but let's get into it. So, Dajaune Brown's out on loan at Gateshead, however you say it. Doing amazing, really. Doing fantastic. Obviously, not quite League One, League Two level, but he's doing good and he's scoring goals, he's starting games, and that was the whole point of getting him out on loan. And I think that was massively important for Dejon to go and get minutes, go and work his way into a side. And I believe Gateshead are aiming for the playoffs at the moment, maybe even automatic promotion. I'm not 100% sure on where they are. If you are enjoying this Derby County content, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below or in this top corner to stay tuned to all of my latest content. I've got a League One review coming out tomorrow when all the games are finished, and also a Formula One review after the Saturday qualifying. So make sure you hit that subscribe button down below to stay tuned for all of my latest content. But they are battling at the top end of the table, and that's really good to see. He's putting the ball in the back of the net, and that is what he needs to do as a striker. He's showing some really impressive talent. He's really physical, which is doing himself really good. He's got that burst of pace that you need as a striker. He's able to hold up the ball, link up the play. He's able to run in behind as well. So he offers a little bit of everything. And at that level, he's showing that he's capable of scoring goals. Now, there's numerous ways that Derby could handle this situation. And for me, I think a lot depends on league status. Now, if we're in the Championship, I don't think he'll even get a look in, really. But if we're in League One, I think he stands more of a chance of being in and around the squad. Now, obviously, still 4 games to go. I'm not fully confident we're going up yet. We could still bottle this and end up in the playoffs. Obviously, Bolton have that game in hand. So it's one of those at the minute where it's still a 50-50. But if Derby County go to the Championship, for me, I would try and get Brown to a League Two club on loan for a 6-month loan. I'd keep him at Derby for, say, the first 2 or 3 weeks of pre-season. Have him do the pre-season tour with our first team. Have him train with the first team. Do a couple of the friendlies with our first team. And then when it gets to maybe start of July, mid-July, get him into a club so he can get used to their style of football, their coaching staff, their players, obviously, get a few friendlies with a potential loan team. And then, obviously, because it's important that he understands the style of play that he's playing at. Now, obviously, could he go back to Gateshead next year? Potentially. Someone's going to have to tell me how to say that down in the comments, because I'm 100% like doing it wrong. I'm saying it wrong. I just am. But could he go back? Now, if they get promoted, I think that's definitely a possibility. But realistically, I think he needs to be at sort of a top-end League Two side, maybe. And if we go up, maybe even a lower-end League One. Like, we've got to sort of get him in a position where he's going to get chances and going to be able to prove what he can do. Now, obviously, he is still only young. I believe he's not long turned 18, maybe not long turned 17, something like that. So he's still a very, very young lad, and he's doing very well for himself. He's done really well in the under-23s, and it's quite clear he got to a stage with the 23s where they just couldn't progress him anymore with the 23s, and he wasn't getting the minutes for the first team, despite the fact I think there was opportunities for him to get minutes. I think there was a lot of times we could have brought him on in games, and now I understand it's a trust factor, and like Paul Warne's got his players that he trusts and the ones who is going to rely on this season, and Dejon just wasn't in that list. Now, obviously, if we stay in League One, I think he's got a brilliant opportunity to establish himself as one of Derby's first team players. we've seen it with the likes of Cashin, Tomo, Sibley, Bird, Knight, all coming through the academy and being key players for the team during their period. You even look at like Lee Buchanan, who's like left a couple of years ago, Festi Ebiselli, Morgan Whittaker came through, quickly moved on to Swansea. Luke Plange found himself with a move to Crystal Palace, the same with Malcolm Ebioe. Like, we give chances. Now, the problem I've seen so far under Paul Warne, and it's not a bash against Paul Warne, I'm not in the Paul Warne out camp, don't worry, but I don't think we've given the young lads as much opportunities as we could have done. Like, I go back to, there's a game I remember, I think it was Northampton at home, we was like 2 or 3-0 up, and I think we had Dajaune Brown on the bench, I think we had Darren Robinson on the bench, if I remember rightly, and neither of them got on the pitch. And for me, like, I don't mind if it's a tight game. Like Pompey the other night, there's no way you chuck in a Darren Robinson or a Dajaune Brown or a Jadon Davidson or like a Cruz Allen or something into that game if they're on the bench, or a Kylan Robinson who's been sitting on the bench recently as a centre-half because Sonny Bradley's been suspended. Like, you're not going to chuck any of them players into that game. Like, that's completely understandable. Now, under Rooney, we did chuck Liam Thompson in against Bournemouth, promotion challenging Bournemouth, and we chucked Liam Thompson in for, I think it was his first start of the season. Absolutely blew everybody away. He was incredible that day. And that's what really got him into the team. So, like, for me, I think we're in a bit of a position where some of the young lads aren't getting the opportunities, but I think with Collins being out of contract, Gale being out of contract, Waghorn being out of contract, I think there's a real opportunity this summer if we stay in League One. Now, fingers crossed, we go to the promised land of the Championship and we're one season away from the Premier League. Now, obviously, it won't take one season, it'll take a lot longer, but like, if we can get back into the Championship, I think it changes the prospects massively because the players we can bring in massively change, and it's stuff like that which is obviously very difficult to predict at this point. But if we're in League One, I think there is an opportunity for Dajaune Brown to become maybe our first choice striker, maybe our second choice striker, depending on the situation, with the likes of Collins and Gale. Obviously, I believe Washington still has maybe another year, 2 years on his contract. So obviously he'll still be about. So it's sort of one of those where, for me, I think he's got to go out on loan. Realistically, he needs football. Whatever league we're in, if he's not going to play here, he's got to go and get football. I'd love to see him in the EFL. He needs to prove that he can do it in the Football League. Obviously, he's played in a few EFL trophy games. I think he has come on in a couple of games in the league, but he's not really had like any chance to really prove himself. So it's just one of those, really. It's a very difficult situation, obviously, because when you're battling for promotion, it's difficult to chuck in a young lad and go, oh, here you are, play half an hour. Here you are, here's a start. Like, it is difficult. Like, I do understand. Now, I never played football at a high level, like, don't get me wrong, but, like, your less experienced players, the ones that were new to the team, wouldn't play as much in those games where you knew you needed a result. And like, I've seen it from a coach's perspective, I've seen it from an analyst's perspective, and I've seen it from a player's perspective as well. So it's like, when you get to these levels where they're professional, like, and at 23s, 21s level, he's not going to progress anymore there. So if he's not playing first team football for us, he needs to be playing first team football elsewhere. So realistically, the end of the debate really is he's got to go on loan if he's not getting minutes here. Now, obviously, we've had previous strikers come through at the club, the likes of Luke Plange. Hasn't really gone on to anything big since leaving the club. Malcolm Ebioe, similar. Not really hit the ground running anywhere since leaving Derby. Now, he's obviously had some bright performances for Crystal Palace's academy. Had a couple of good performances last season on loan at Hull. I don't really know what's going on with him right now because I don't follow Crystal Palace. Don't really know what's going on with Luke Plange either. I know he went on loan to a foreign side. I'm not sure which country he went to. Then he started this season on loan. I think it was at Lincoln. Was it Lincoln? Yeah, probably. It was Lincoln. I'm sure it was Lincoln. It might have been Carlisle. But he started his season off in League One and just hasn't been able to do what he needs to do. And it's like, I don't want Dajaune Brown to go down that same path of sort of ending up in a bit of no man's land where he's not playing football. And obviously it's even like he has to look at someone like Aaron Cashin. Didn't get into the first team really until he was 20 years old. That's 2 years away for Dajaune Brown. And even then, like, Cashin came up to the first team in that administration season, and realistically, he could have left before that season, which was always very interesting. And like Cashin did an interview a few weeks ago, and he was talking about how he was always on the edge when it came to release day. He was never sort of 100% sure he was going to stay. So it's good now that Cashin has stayed. And obviously, I think that leaves the platform for those younger players like Dajaune Brown. I think Brown's got a very bright future at this football club, given the opportunities. It's obviously massive. He gets the opportunities. But for me, I think a loan spell, whatever league, would probably be the best bet. But really, if he can show good ability in pre-season, I think there's no reason why he shouldn't be like asking for a shirt for the first team for the next season, whatever league. But I think a lot depends on who wants him, where they are league-wise, where they're expected to be league-wise, the squad they have, the manager. Obviously, the style of play has got to suit what Derby are trying to do. So, yeah, let me know your thoughts about Dajaune Brown down in the comments. Do you think he's going to end up as a first-team regular at Derby, or do you think he's going to end up elsewhere? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. While you're down there, hit that subscribe button, and I'll catch you in the next video. Make sure to go and find me on TikTok, pictured here, and Twitter, pictured here. These are the places where I'll keep you all up to date with all my upcoming videos and my thoughts and feelings around the Formula 1 and football weekend.